My comment on New Jersey is, if we're so rich, why are we broke? And it's a really interesting commentary, because we're an extremely wealthy state, right? We all know that. Every list that you see for the number of millionaires, there's 243,000 people in this state who have over $1 million in assets. But guess that includes your house. Okay, so let's think about that for a moment. 243,000. So why are we in trouble? And we are in trouble. But again, it's structural, right? There are a lot of structural issues here. And these guys mostly know this. I don't know this team as well, but they know what's going on. New Jersey is pretty unique. It has one of the most highly educated workforces. It's extremely urban. It's the most urban state. It has extremes of poverty and of wealth. It has an extremely progressive income tax, much more progressive than New York City. If you have a child who's earning $75,000 a year, as I have too, in which those are great jobs, they're living in New York City, they're paying $4,000 more a year in income taxes for the great pleasure of living in New York and paying 3 times the rent as well. No wonder they are clearly broke. And so it is, but think about that for a moment, because it's interesting. If you look at our income taxes are designed, and now there's property taxes, and I'll get to that in a second, but they're clearly very, very progressive income tax rate. So what's going on in New Jersey? Well, there are a couple of things first I want to start with. If you're a New Jersey resident that works in New York City, you pay your state income tax on what you earn in New York to New York. If you are a New Jersey resident that works in Pennsylvania, right? So you're working in Pennsylvania, you're paying your income tax to the state of New Jersey. If you live in Pennsylvania and you work in New Jersey, you pay your income tax to Pennsylvania. So that is a real catch-22 trap. So what occurs with that is, if we were to look at the income tax that are brought in every year, the offset, which will be New York, the offset taxes for people, get your credit, right? You work in New York City, I do that, you get a credit for the taxes that you pay. You do pay taxes on your dividends and everything else, but your income's taxed in New York. Send your check to Albany. By the way, if you work in the much despised and maligned investment banking industry, they over-withhold, because they think you're never going to pay. So they borrow from you, and every year it's like, what do you mean your tax rate is 9%? Why are you withholding 11? But they do. And there's not much you can do about it. But in any event, so you look at that, it's about $2.6 billion in the last year that I had the numbers, which was 2012. $2.6 billion goes to New York. That would be nice if it were here, wouldn't it? But it's not. So $2.6 billion goes. I can't get my hands around, and nor does our state treasurer actually have the data, because it's difficult to trap, is exactly who works in New Jersey that lives in Pennsylvania. I'm going to bet it's an awful lot of state workers too, right there in Trenton. So, and you're thinking, and so they're working in New Jersey, and so that income is not taxed in New Jersey. It's not. Right? That was a deal that was struck years ago. It was struck for South Jersey because Philadelphia has an income tax. Right? So the state of Pennsylvania has a 3.01% income tax. Okay, if you're earning 65 or 75,000, you're going to be sort of indifferent between the two of those. But if you're earning a lot of money, you're going to look at an 8.97 or 98% tax rate versus 3.01, and you're going across the river. And your income taxes are probably lower too. You set these equations up, and then you're shocked by when people just do logical things, right? I mean, it makes sense. So I think that that you want to be mindful of that. That's a structural thing that is sitting there. And I meant, Philadelphia has like a 5% income tax. In fact, Philadelphia is a classic study on how you hollow out a city by trying to do the right thing. They lost a lot of their businesses. They lost their key businesses when they put that income tax. There have been books written on it, articles, studies. They're lucky they're not in a Detroit situation. And we could talk about Detroit later. But you can actually get into that. For New Jersey would find itself with multiple Detroit situations if not careful. So coming back to the income taxes and the property. So right now we have property taxes are about $25 billion. Income taxes are about $13 billion. They're up this year. They're back to 13. They were down to 9 because it is so high-end focused on the wealthy. That is very volatile because most of that income isn't compensation income. Of course, it's capital gains and it's dividends and it's interest for those people. And so consequently, in a market that goes down and goes up, it's going to be very volatile. So you have $13 billion. That's the good news. You've got that's coming in, but it is, as I said, volatile. You've got $25 billion in property taxes, about $9 billion in sales taxes, and then it sort of scales off, right? And then there's another tax I'll talk about in a minute, and it's an estate tax because it has consequences too. And then we also have to think about how do we stand versus Pennsylvania, how do we stand versus New York, because there's a lot of competition around that. From a business perspective, we have a limited ability to carry net operating loss carry. It's not the friendliest state to start a business in. Because if you're starting a business and you have losses out of the box, there are some things, they've created they look to me to be very torturous ways of actually monetizing net operating losses. There's a real easy way to do that. You can have a net operating loss carry forward, right? It's pretty simple. And most states have that. And you're seeing New York actually putting that. New York already has that. And New York is putting in place some pretty aggressive send your business to us kind of stuff as well right now. So you're going to have to be responsive around that. But if you have to be mindful of, these are jobs that you want, right? And you have the workforce, you have the skill set, you have the universities, you have the pharmas. All these things should be happening here, and when they occur, when you have that kind of, for example, in New York City, you can see in Silicon Alley. Silicon Alley has a tremendous amount of IT and energy based upon what you would expect, media. Because New York has always been the media hype. If you go to Boston, it's a particular element. If you go out to Silicon Valley, it's a particular element. If I go to Seattle, if I go to Austin, these are pockets of activity. You get to a certain tipping point, and it just blossoms, right? There isn't any reason why you shouldn't be able to have that in New Jersey. You should, right? But you've got to have the income, the population, and the access, and the angle. You got them all. Right. But you have to make it friendly for startup, and the state's aware of that. But the stuff is contortionary. And when you think about New Jersey's concentration, I'm going to give you an interesting, I noticed this and I just said, this cannot be for real. There are 400 people in the state of New Jersey who pay $1 billion of the $13 billion in taxes. 400. Another 800, and now we're up to, $1.5 billion. This is what we call concentration, right? Concentration. Remember, I said there were 253,000 people who had over $1 million in assets. So now we have these 400 people who, should they choose to change residency, and these people on average have an average income of $25 million. So they can probably go wherever they want. And they don't have to leave a state. They just simply they can have 5 houses here and choose to live in Florida, residency, or Wyoming, or we all know those states, right? And where do they go? So, but right now they're here. We've lost a lot of billionaires. Actually, we've lost probably, half of them already. Now, when a billionaire leaves a state, you may not like billionaires. I quite frankly think that wealth is created and should be taxed, but it's and shared. And most of these people are pretty generous. But if you leave the state, one of the things that you need to do when you leave is disassociate yourself from your local charities. They can give money to the Red Cross, that is a local Red Cross for the nation, but they need to go and they need to register to vote in this new state. They need to join a church in the new state. They need to disassociate themselves from what they did before, so they will not be serving on your local library. They will not be donating to the local library unless it's through a family foundation. So there is a way around it. You can do it through a family foundation. But on an individual basis, they have to pull themselves back. So think about that. If 400 people decide, you know what, we should leave, that's $1 billion hole. That's stupid. Because on top of that, so you want to make sure that what we would call in the business, you're getting a satisficing level of tax and you're showing respect. And there's also the concept of, what about thank you very much, right? There's a appreciation as opposed to punishment. So you have to watch the tone. And remember, I'm a Democrat. So this is an unusual conversation coming from a Democrat who's saying, watch your tone. You know, you would not tolerate that at a dinner table with your children there. Watch your tone as you talk about people. You wouldn't tolerate it. So why should we tolerate it in politics? But coming back to Jersey, so there's a structural deficit. And the structural deficit has to do with, you know, has to do, quite frankly, with promises that have been made for pensions, promises that have been made for health care, that no one ever really factored in. Now, you guys all work for companies, and you actually have gap accounting. When you make a promise, your accountant's going to say to you, you know, you need to have a footnote here, or we have an underfunded pension liability, we have this, we've made these promises, we have to be very clear about what we've done. It may come as a shock to you, but until last year, governments were not actually subject to those rules. They had pay-as-you-go accounting. They never had to say, gee, if we make that promise on an actuarial basis, it has these consequences. I'm thinking right now of the police chief in Princeton who was asked to step down last year. Now, I don't know the man, but he left. He stayed a little bit later to get a 30-year pension. He's getting a pension at the age of 49 of $122,000 a year. He's 49. He has 4 children. Okay, that's great. Okay, on an actuarial basis, what do you think the net, leaving aside a cost of living increase that could potentially be factored into that, what's the net present value of that on an annuity basis? It's huge. It's a couple million, about $2.5 million. I called my guys. I said, tell me what that is. Okay, how about if we say, we're giving $2.5 million to this guy as he leaves. That's factual, right? But we don't say that. Right? And if you're a local government, that's a way to think about it, because that'll capture people's attention. Now, your local police force will not like this, so you might want to think about that too. But it is a way to structure an argument that people can, without getting emotional, go, gee, I hadn't thought about it that way. The health care issue is even greater, because there is no funding. I mean, at least the pensions are 2/3 funded in the state of New Jersey. I like to think of the glass half full. And the health care is this huge unknown. Right? Nowhere in the real world, away from government, do people get post-retirement health care benefits. It just doesn't exist. And nobody in the world that I live in, or probably the world that you live in, gets a pension that they draw when they're 40 years old. If you were unlucky enough to be at Lehman, your pension went away. You know, it's gone. And it's capped at some rate, you know, maybe $50,000 a year when I turn 65 or 66. It's gone, right? And you know, and I'm not crying for me, it's the way it goes. Somebody loses, it was me. I'm back. You have to look at these things from a common sense perspective and not allow fear. So when you hear people upset, they're afraid. How did businesses, how did the steel industry deal with this issue? This is where government can learn from business. How did they deal with this back in the 80s when U.S. Steel went from 110,000 employees to 10,000 employees in 10 years? How'd they do that? I actually did part of that restructuring. And they set up huge funds to do transitions and workforces, et cetera. But they almost went bankrupt because of post-retirement health care liabilities and pooled liabilities. How did they deal with structuring? They did it over time. Time is your friend, because you can stage these things in so that people can actually be treated with respect as you make your changes. They also did things like, hey, you know what, if you're under 40, we're changing the game for you. If you're under this is they came to transitional cycles. If you ask a 25-year-old, would they prefer the pension or an additional $1,000, they will take the $1,000 because they have to pay the rent. When you're 25, you're not thinking about 65. And we all know that, we've been there. But if you're 45 or you're 55, you're beginning to worry. And if you're 55 to 65, you're in the zone, so you have to think about how those people get transitioned. And we're not having that discussion in an open forum. And so therefore, if you're young today, the tax that you are paying is you are underemployed, and you are underpaid, and you are paying to support your parents and your grandparents. And that is a moral wrong. So, so you have to be thinking about how do we address those issues? How do we get to that? So that's, that you're getting a little bit of a choir from me on that one, but that bothers me tremendously. And I think we have to think about how to do it. Federal tax rates, they're actually sort of back to the Reagan on a margin basis, but with that we're very close to with 39.6 plus the 0.9 plus 3.8. They're up there. People will be really shocked when they see their tax bills this year. And they're much higher than people think because also your deductions are going away. New Jersey has to address the structural issues, and it has the wherewithal to do it. But the one last thing I want to say, and then I want to take some questions. I want to come back to the estate issue because this one is an easy one to fix in some ways and hard in others. I mentioned that the state, it's raising about $30 billion a year. So, and of that, I said 13 was income tax. About $700 million is in the form of inheritance and estate taxes. Estate taxes. It is assessed against, back when the federal exemption right now is $5.34 million, because there was a whole bunch of noise about it. It used to be $1 million, it was $675. No, it's $5.34 million. New York is about to raise theirs. They've proposed, the governor, Cuomo, has proposed raising it to 5.34, linking. We're one of, I think, 2 states that has not moved back in. We delinked at 675. So if you die today in New Jersey, your estate is taxed at 16% on a graduated rate up over $675,000. That's a lot of people because that's the value of your home. And you're in a state where real estate is expensive. It's your home. It's your pension. So we got a lot of people who are saying, Mom, Dad, you should move to Florida. How about you go over to that assisted living facility in Pennsylvania? Because they don't have that tax there. It's 3%, it's an inheritance tax, not an estate tax. So if you can give the money directly to your children. By the way, we have both an inheritance and an estate tax. So, but only the highest one applies. So whatever they can get the most money from applies. It is something I think that it really attacks what I would call the core of New Jersey, which is the middle and upper middle class and your more affluent people who would have $675,000. That is one that if I could structure, you don't have to eliminate it. You just have to go link it to the way New York is linking. And I think that'll take some of the pressure off of, send Mom and Dad to Florida, or Mom and Dad feeling they have to go to Florida. I have to leave my home. I can't die here. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. And that's not a good thing either. So, I think from a business perspective, it's 2014. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but we're going up. We're not going down. The U.S. is in a good position. The Northeast is in a good position. New Jersey should be in a good position. It needs to address these structural elements if they can get the noise level down and actually focus on it. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much. As I always do, from the board, from the staff, thank you all for coming out. Thank you all for supporting us. Stay warm and drive careful. Thanks, bye.